Do you anticipate we will see the J&J vaccine again being given out in American arms?
Brian, yes, I think that there is a willingness for us to use this vaccine. We did need to make an important pause to be able to look at this safety information, to be able to consider kind of the risks, but certainly I think that there's a huge amount of evidence that the benefit greatly outweighs this risk. We're going to be able to look at this a little bit better and then come up with a set of recommendations that I think that everyone will be happy with.
And how do you assess the risk, Dr. Chen? Because I will admit it. You know, you go through the numbers. We don't know the denominator. But if you look at the number of people that had blood clots, you're literally talking about a lightning strike type odds event of getting some kind of thrombosis from the J&J shot. Do you believe that the risks were actually higher than the numbers that were out there in the public?
Well, I think we'll get a better number today. Certainly, you know, last week it was hastily put together information because we had only learned about these events over the past, 48 hours. But now that we've had this pause, we've been able to be much more thoughtful and gather that information. So actually, we will have a better denominator. We know that, according to the CDC's counting of vaccine doses, there's about 7.9 million J&J vaccines that have been administered. And now we will be able to get a good case count. It may not be perfect, but we don't need to have perfect to have actionable information.
Because, Doctor, I don't need to tell you, the criticism, if you want to call it that, is, okay, there is an extremely long, by the way, 275 people a day in America die of blood clots. That's from the American Clotting Association, unrelated to anything having to do with COVID. There are people who will say, okay, we've had 6 or 7 or 10 or even 100, whatever the number might be, doctor, cases. But by pausing it, you're putting thousands or tens of thousands of people at risk of COVID and a negative outcome as well. Take us in the meeting. How does the medical community evaluate risk? There's no such thing as zero risk, although we'd like it to be, I think, right now. How do we balance that out, doctor?
Well, let me also give you perspective as well. Remember when we first launched the Pfizer vaccine and then the Moderna vaccine shortly thereafter, we had within the first 48 hours, the first anaphylaxis events. And I think that also caused a lot of concern, fear, dismay, what have you. And so I think that, again, for us to be able to communicate that risk out to the public and to the medical community is an important part of us being able to react and understand the risks versus the benefit. So I think that I totally agree with you. The risk is very, very minor, but until we were able to fully consider that information, we could not contextualize that to the rest of the medical community and also to the public as well. We will have more confident numbers today, and I think that also engenders more confidence. We've only paused for 10 days. Hopefully that will not be harmful in the long run, but we, of course, want to engender that there is some confidence in the system for collecting safety information.
And overall, doctor, have we or are we close to reaching peak vaccine in many areas? We're already in New Jersey, where I am, starting to see supply far outstrip demand. We're seeing it in New York City, where only 25% of the population is fully vaccinated, which blows my mind considering New York City got devastated. I don't know what's going on up there, but do you think it's peak vaccination in some areas already?
Well, I think that what you're talking about is that there is a fixed amount of supply that is, right now this third vaccine is being taken off, temporarily. And so it would be great to have that third vaccine return back to the supply. And our ability to deliver vaccines is also, weighed against the huge amount of vaccine hesitancy and some people who are unable to access vaccines. And so, again, that makes it difficult for us to eventually get those shots in arms. So I think that's what you're dealing with as well.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.